Γεια σας όλοι. I wrote this essay in August of 2010, and I have since had a tubal ligation on the 22nd of September 2011. Definitely I have decided I do not want to give birth to my own child. That doesn't mean that I never ever want to have a child in my life. I might choose to adopt someday, or I might go with someone who has a child already. But in those cases, I would prefer an older child, say maybe 2 or even slightly older than that, who is male and of pure Greek blood and Greek citizenship. And as you'll see in this essay, that's quite important to me. But at this point in my life, I'm extremely happy and satisfied without, just being an aunt. That's good enough for me. Oh, before I continue, I saw here, I also wrote one called Femininity and Parenting, which I have here on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch that, it's my views on the best way to be a parent and really who should be parents and whatnot. Also, I wrote this particular essay, the Childfree one, for a place called the Zone BBS. That's zonebbs.com. Hence the reference to the boards. There are many boards on here about parenting. Some express the joy of just having a baby. Others ask what to do as baby gets older, and still others ask if the authors should even have a baby. I've thought about it many times in my life, what it would be like to have one. Not so much the physical aspect of it, but just having one around. Usually, the child, in my mind, is already talking and can learn things, and the few times when he or she, I would prefer a boy, isn't are fleeting. I think about how I could teach him values, things about Hellenic polytheism, patriotism, our history, our language, etc. I think of how it would feel when he would join the military and how proud I would be. But then I realize that there's this whole stage where they can't talk, walk, or do anything. Then there's the fact of caring for the child for 18 years and still bailing him out of trouble when he gets older. It's a huge responsibility to have a child. You can't simply say, no, I don't want this baby now, I'll just send it back. You can't go out with your friends whenever you'd like, sleep whenever you'd like, have sex whenever you'd like, etc., because the baby might need you. Your whole life is for that child, until he or she is old enough to start taking care of him or herself, and even then, you only get a bit of freedom until he or she leaves home. For good. If you do it properly, then you have to make sure that you're in a stable relationship with someone who also wants a child, have enough money so that the child won't starve or have to do without, have one partner make enough or have a work-at-home job so that at least one can stay home with the child until he or she is at least 5 years old or old enough to go to school. And most importantly, be ready to give everything of yourself all the time, no matter how crappy you may feel. You also need to be willing to put a career aside, even a successful one, if it would interfere with your family, unless, of course, you're involved in something majorly patriotic that must come first. I'm completely ready to give of myself for my country, but I'm not ready to have a baby, and don't know if I ever will be. As a side note, I discussed the issues of career and whatnot in my femininity essay. So if you want to hear more on those issues, go there. I know that there are many women today who choose not to have children, and even if there weren't, what society does is of no concern to me. I've heard many child-free people say that they hate children and then launch into complaints about the screaming, whining, disrespectful little brats. But I don't feel that way at all. I'm very protective of children, and I don't mind being an aunt and taking on the responsibility of that position. I just can't commit to something as life-altering as having a child of my own. Then, I think of one of the main reasons why I would do it in the first place, which is so that I could produce the next Greek man or woman who would be able to serve our country. I would encourage her to join the Hellenic Armed Forces. For men, it's mandatory, and thereby serve vicariously. I would want him or her to be strong and looked upon as a full citizen, because he or she would be born in Greece and I didn't have that luxury. But when I mentioned this to Mom, a horrible thought crossed my mind, one which usually brings comfort. Greece is not a citizenship by birth country, so this means that unless I married my child's father, who would also need to be a Greek citizen, my child wouldn't be able to have that privilege, even if born there. Marrying isn't the problem, since I would love him and would want to spend the rest of my life with him, so that we could raise our family together, and I should hope I'd marry a citizen of Greece. But I'm not sure if a civil or non-Christian marriage would be considered for my child to attain citizenship. Of course, I could always adopt a child of pure Greek blood who is already a citizen, but that can lead to a whole other set of problems, since I'm not sure how kindly the authorities would take to an adoption where one parent is blind. Furthermore, I wouldn't be able to breastfeed him, so would need to see what other natural options would be available for his nourishment. All of that aside, these other nationalistic concerns would still be in my mind while he was growing up. This, of course, wouldn't be fair to the child, particularly if, due to unforeseen circumstances, we were forced to stay in America, and it wouldn't be the right reasons to have one in any case. While I was talking with Mom yesterday, another reason sprang to mind. What kind of world would I be giving my child? I was born in 1983, and even though I'm only 27, I changed that here because I wrote this last year, the world has changed since then. Of course, much of it is for the better, but there are horrible crimes now, more than ever before, that weren't even thought of 20 years ago, or at the very least, which were very rare. Things like school shootings, bombings, attacks on random strangers, even in white bread suburbs. It gets even worse if we look at the current economy of the world. Who knows what will happen? Perhaps there will be a war or a serious depression that will cross all international borders, and if you add Greece in the mix, now we're really talking problems. There are protests, strikes, a lack of respect for authority, an economy that barely exists, corruption, and more. So again, into what kind of world would I be bringing this child of mine? Of course, if I honestly wanted one with all my heart and soul, that wouldn't matter. I would find the positives and cling to them, and would find ways to give him hope for the future. Who knows? He might even find a way to fix our national problems. But the issue can't be overlooked either. The final reason why I don't want a baby, and I don't care how many people bitch and moan about this, is because of my blindness. Yes, it can be done, but I don't feel comfortable with the idea of me being alone with an infant or toddler who can get into things, and who could get hurt, wander off, go into a car with a stranger, eat or drink something that could poison and or choke him or her, or even be wet and not be changed immediately, all because I can't see what's happening. I don't care how many success stories there are out there. I would want a sighted person with me when caring for him in certain cases, especially during the exploring stage when the child isn't in his crib or playpen, and could wander all over the house and get into things. I couldn't live with myself if something horrible happened to the child. Well, I was right there. When I expressed these views to Mom, she said that this is why, if I were going to have a child, she would want me to do it relatively soon so that she could help care for it. But I don't want to be a single parent, and finding the right father isn't just about assuring his heritage and medical history is satisfactory. I would need to truly love the man, and he would need to love me, and we would need to be willing to settle down with each other and with no one else. That in itself is a huge commitment, and right now I'm already with a man who has had enough children. He has 2 grown children of his own, whom I adore, and I don't intend on leaving him any time soon. Mom listened to all of this and ultimately agreed with me. She said my reasons were very logical and well thought out. So now I'm wondering, how many of you are like me, in that you're not ready and are not sure you ever will be to have a child or bring a child into your life? How many have decided absolutely that this is not the life for you? Do you feel that society expects you to have children? If you're a man and are reading this, or watching this video, do you feel that The pressure is not only on women to become mothers, but also on men to become fathers.